I'm Joanne Heyler, founding director of the Broad Museum, and I'm excited to be joined by two extraordinary practitioners in art and design architect of the Broad Museum, Elizabeth Diller, and artist and filmmaker Clarissa Tossin. Liz Diller is a partner of Diller Scofidio Renfro, the firm that designed this remarkable building, the Broad Museum. DSR has more recently, since designing the Broad, completed the renovation of the Museum of Modern Art in New York. They're working on major projects in London for the London Symphony Orchestra and for the Victoria and Albert Museum. Clarissa Tossin is a visual artist who uses installation, video, performance, sculpture, photography to negotiate the hybridization of cultures and the persistence of difference. So welcome to you both. I'm just absolutely thrilled to bring you together to talk about Clarissa's amazing film and the building that it documents.
Thanks so much, Joanne, and glad to be part of this this little interview and discussion. I'd like to start by saying I never really wanted to be an architect. It was the last thing on my mind. I was a very 2D person, of photography and film, and in fact studied in college, and then took one course in architectonics at Cooper Union, and it sort of changed the way I saw. I found a third dimension, and I found time in a different way. I started teaching early in life. And then at some point, I have to say, without really agreeing to enter the profession, which I thought was corrupt and intellectually bankrupt, there was some project that just brought me to realize, this was the Slow House. It was very small. It was a private house for an art collector, actually. Where we were able to sort of connect an idea with a built physical structure. But it was the first moment where I felt like I could express my ideas in a more constricted sort of professional construct. And then from there, I would say some significant projects, the Blur building, where we were able to do something between an environmental scale installation and a real building in 2002, and then perhaps our first museum for the ICA in Boston, and that we began in 2006, where we felt like we were on the other side of all of a sudden the gallery wall. So for many years we were working outside of the disciplinary boundaries of architecture, but in space. And in fact, we did guerrilla operations in space. We occupied spaces without permission. Sometimes we did installations that were sanctioned. But there was always an interest in the public and having an interface with space and the public. But outside of the professional bounds of architecture as it's understood. At the same time, we were against the museum, and very much I was educated at a time of the institutional critique, and it became very much a part of my consciousness that somehow the institution was limiting, and that it was an expression of power and control. And so I wanted to really sort of make a mark and make a difference outside of those walls.
First of all, thanks, Joanne, for inviting me to have the opportunity to make a film here at the Broad. I should mention that I do not have a formal filmmaking education. Working with film or moving image or video, I always have a hard time identifying the best words to define what I do in terms of time and image and movement. Perhaps because I don't have a formal filmmaking education, and I got to it out of a necessity to work with time, create narratives, and specifically films related to architecture. So the scale of architecture, I think it's more, it's compatible with filmmaking.
It sort of sounds like each of you also in your career path, for lack of a different term, have sort of crossed boundaries a little bit. And so, you know, the seen and the unseen that plays such a role in my perception anyway of the Broad Museum, you know, with the window onto storage, with lots of other things. It seems connected to a view, a worldview in a sense that you each share and comes out of your own experience.
Yeah. I have to say that visuality has always been a part of our work, and that stretches across many issues, including voyeurism and exhibitionism, and, you know, different kinds of seeing, surveillance. But you know, the thing that you're touching on is very much a part of our work, is allowing others to see what's already there. But we sleepwalk through it because it's so familiar. And it's, I would say that that consciousness comes into virtually every project. This particular project at the Broad, there was a wonderful challenge in that the building ostensibly was a storage facility, but it was also a gallery, an exhibition space. And the exhibition space is for curated artwork. It's there for the public to see. It's organized in a certain way. And the public responds to it, you know, in those very conventional way that, you know, general public will go to the museum and look at stuff on the walls and interact. Hopefully we do it less conventionally than other museums. But the opportunity to allow the public to see the actual storage facility itself, that is the suitcase that gets unpacked every time there's a show, it seemed like a wonderful opportunity to allow the public some glimpses of that behind the scenes.
And even as an artist, I love when I'm invited to do a project in a museum because I'm allowed to use the freight elevator and get in with staff from the back. And it's like how that part of the building looks like. That's the part that is not accessible to the general public, but that is so essential to the character, to who the building is. And in a way, I feel that through my films, I do really want the buildings to tell the stories, to be a character in and of themselves through cinematography, through the visual narrative that I create. Obviously, it's my perception of those buildings combined with the historical research or just the experiencing of being in those spaces.
I have to say, on the issue of you know, visibility and vision, an artist looking at a work of architecture that's made by an architect is also an extra vision that is just not expected. And when I love your film, and when I saw it multiple times, but that beginning is a beautiful sequence. I didn't know where I was, actually, and that was so great to defamiliarize the place for me, to see it through new eyes, the form, the light, the points of light.
I was wondering if we could touch for a moment on the fact, I think many people, myself included, experience the Broad as a very a very, especially in the lobby and in the escalator, a very kind of active presence. So, when you're a visitor to the Broad, I feel that you're not really just a visitor, you're sort of a participant.
So one choice that I made that was very explicit and relates with choreography and dance and the building was to put the camera on a gimbal. And a gimbal, it's just, instead of a tripod, you have this apparatus that you can hold with your hands and move around. And it has a play of weights that makes the camera movement very smooth, right, and not jumpy, as if you are really walking with a camera on your hands. But it really implies a human being behind the camera. So the film has moments where we are going up and then we come down, and it's very choreographed with the escalator and the elevator and picking in the storage space through the windows that are placed strategically in the staircase that goes upstairs to the main exhibition space. So I feel that those are also the architectonic features that determined a little bit this flow of going up and then down, and even what the camera does in terms of pointing up to the ceiling, right, before coming down the elevator.
You're totally right. It's like it's controlled freedom. Controlled freedom is sort of what we've produced. And architects are usually control freaks, and making, we have a sort of prescribed path, and want the public to experience a space in a particular way. It's that all those moments of passage are intertwined with one another, and there are different rates of travel. One is vertical, one is horizontal, the other one is meandering, and they're all different ways of actually moving through. If you think about it, and you show it in your film, when you go up the elevator, it's like a direct single line, very fast. And the escalator is very drawn out, right? It's just like stretched, and you're almost there.
Clarissa, I wonder if you, I think in your filmic work, you generally do film with a slow passage of time, in sort of slow motion.
Yes, that was another deliberate choice, to film it entirely in slow motion. So it's not something that I had done to this extent before. I've filmed sections of other film projects in slow motion for all different reasons. You need a different perception of time to sit with space, with this space, specifically with architectonic space. It's not, I felt that this structure, to really perceive and translate into film the experience of being inside the space, had to be slow.
I think I've heard you refer to the film as being about the psychological space of the building, but of course it's also, I imagine, the psychological space of this moment of contending with the closure of so much of our society, including museums. So that makes a lot of sense.
I knew that I wanted the installation crew, or some members of the installation crew, to be in the film, to again reveal the infrastructure, let's say, of like the building operating behind the scenes. But also, since the beginning, we discussed they are going to be wearing masks, and that's obvious for safety. But for me, it's also this signifier of the moment that we are experiencing right now in the future, when this movie gets seen outside of the context of the pandemic, when we are not thinking about a pandemic any longer.
I wonder if each of you could talk a little bit about the context and the urban environment of Los Angeles, both in terms of creating this building, designing it, Liz, and in terms of capturing it on its fifth year of operation, Clarissa, at this extraordinary moment.
Yes, there was something very compelling to us when we started this project about this institution in Los Angeles and in the location that was selected for it, in downtown LA, and in a place that was envisioned by Eli Broad as a kind of, a great density of cultural institutions and a city really in the making or reawakening.
Yes, being able to see the outside, even if at determined angles and just sections of it. It's I appreciate that because I'm in Southern California. I want to be able to see the sky and to see the beautiful day outside, and it's like the veil allows that in a way that it's not too invasive or too bright to your eyes to accommodate the experience of being inside and still having a glance of what's happening outside. So that's very specific for me to this building have been created for Los Angeles in Southern California, given the specific climatic situation that we have here.
You come out off the street, away from the honking horns, away from distraction. You put away your cell phone. You are there to have some kind of experience with the art. And that experience is not about the outside. It's really about inward focus. And at the same time, that could be a liability in a building, in a museum, that you totally lose touch. You lose touch in terms of what time of day it is, whether it's raining out or not, or which city you're in. That every museum space could look like every other museum space, and a Jeff Koons at the Broad could look like a Jeff Koons, someplace else on the other side of the planet. And we really tried very hard to produce a sense of being there without letting there get in the way. So in other words, without explicit views to the outside, without being able to frame something in the distance, but by seeing everything obliquely, the light comes in through the veil obliquely, you can come around, and as you get close, you can see down and through, and you could see the sidewalk and the street. But it's when you're more in the space, it's not distracting to you, so you can have that wonderful concentration with the art. And so that's, maybe something that I rediscovered in the film, that was a character that we built into it, which I totally forgot about.
So Clarissa, I'm very curious to know about what might have been behind some of the choices you made in terms of the galleries that you selected. Of course, you could have selected any galleries in the museum, and there may be 4 or 5, I think, that you focus on. And I'm wondering if you can speak about that at all.
So initially, I did not want to choose any artwork or room specifically. I really want to invert the way I was filming the space and not thinking about the space as an exhibition space and a film that is showing the art that is being exhibited, but as a film that is filming the structure around it, the building, right? And I really think of the Broad Museum, the building itself, as part of the collection. Even though the main idea was to have the artworks reflected and merging with the building, I knew since the beginning that I wanted to give special attention to some works on view, such as Robert Longo's Ferguson Police drawing and Carl Walker's installation, because of their relevance in regards to our current social movements.
So thank you so much, Liz Diller and Clarissa Tossin for this great conversation. Clarissa, your film is just a beautiful document of the museum at this time. Thank you so much for that. And I want to encourage everyone watching to tune into the Broad's YouTube channel to take in the film in its entirety and enjoy some vistas of the Broad that are completely unique to this moment and to Clarissa's vision. Thank you.